Did you know that McDonald's, the world's largest restaurant chain, has sold over 300 billion hamburgers and has more locations than any other food chain? But behind those golden arches lies a wild tale of ambition, betrayal, and even a brush with the Italian mafia. Ever wondered how a simple drive-in restaurant turned into a global fast food empire with such a dark and twisted history? Richard and Maurice McDonald, two brothers from New Hampshire who changed the way we eat. They weren't always in the food business, though. Originally, these guys had Hollywood dreams. In 1927, they moved to California, hoping to make it big in the movie industry. They got jobs pushing film equipment and handling props on movie sets, saving every penny with the dream of buying their movie theater someday. But then, the Great Depression hit. And like everyone else, the McDonald brothers had to scrimp and save. They managed to buy a cheap, run-down theater after 5 years, but it didn't turn out to be the golden ticket they hoped for. The theater barely made enough to keep them afloat. After struggling for another 5 years, they decided it was time for a change. Everywhere they looked, drive-in restaurants were popping up, and people loved the convenience of eating in their cars. Richard and Maurice figured there had to be money in this, so they shifted gears from movies to food. Their first venture was a place called McDonald's Barbecue. At the start, they were selling hot dogs, and let me tell you, it was tough. They had to learn the ropes of grilling, taking orders, delivering food, and managing a restaurant staff all at once. But after a couple of hard years, they started to see some success. They moved to a bigger location in San Bernardino and expanded their menu to include hot dogs, ribs, pork sandwiches, and burgers. The new McDonald's Barbecue was a hit. On weekends, the place was buzzing with over 100 cars at a time. The brothers were making milkshakes and flipping burgers like there was no tomorrow, and their cash registers were overflowing. By 1948, they had made enough money to live in a mansion, but surprisingly, they shut everything down. You see, running a restaurant wasn't all it was cracked up to be. The place had turned into a hangout for rowdy teenagers, which brought more trouble than it was worth. Plus, the operation was exhausting and stressful, and finding good cooks was a nightmare. So, the McDonald brothers did the unthinkable. They closed their successful restaurant to rethink their entire business model. What they did next was pure genius. The brothers took a hard look at their business and realized that 80% of their sales came from just 3 items: hamburgers, fries, and drinks. So they decided to simplify. They cut their menu down to the essential: hamburgers, cheeseburgers, fries, milkshakes, and Coca-Cola. But they didn't stop there. They wanted to make their process as efficient as possible, so they invented the speedy service system. They mapped out their kitchen on a tennis court, trying different layouts and timing each step until they had perfected it. The result was a streamlined operation where each worker handled one specific task, like an assembly line. This meant they didn't need skilled cooks to produce quality food, and they could make orders in about 15 seconds flat. When they reopened, customers were initially confused. They were used to drive-ins where waitresses served them in their cars, but once people figured out they could get their food in a flash, they were hooked. The McDonald brothers had effectively redefined what fast food could be. Competitors noticed, and some, like Burger King and Taco Bell, even copied their system. Croc's story starts pretty modestly. He was a struggling milkshake machine salesman in the 1950s, working long hours to make ends meet. One day, he noticed an unusually large order for his multi-mixers, machines that could make 5 milkshakes at once, coming from a small restaurant in San Bernardino, California. Intrigued, Croc decided to visit the place to see what was going on. When Croc arrived at McDonald's, he was blown away. The restaurant was bustling with customers, and the food was being served at lightning speed. It was clean and efficient, and the food was consistently good. The McDonald brothers' speedy service system was unlike anything Croc had ever seen. He immediately saw the potential to replicate this model across the country. Croc approached Richard and Maurice McDonald with a proposition. He wanted to take their successful model and franchise it nationwide. The brothers were content with their single location and simple life, but Croc was persuasive. He convinced them that franchising could bring in more money and spread their innovative system far and wide. They agreed to let him franchise McDonald's, and Croc got to work. But it wasn't all smooth sailing from there. The initial agreements between Croc and the McDonald brothers were tricky. The brothers were cautious and insisted on maintaining control over their system. They required Croc to get written approval for any changes he wanted to make, which often slowed things down. The first franchised restaurant opened in Des Plaines, Illinois in 1955. Kroc was heavily involved, overseeing everything from the construction to the day-to-day operation. He even cleaned the parking lot himself to ensure it met his high standards. The restaurant was a hit, drawing crowds and quickly turning a profit. However, conflicts with the McDonald brothers soon surfaced. Kroc was frustrated by their reluctance to approve necessary changes and innovations. He wanted to expand quickly, but the brothers' cautious approach was holding him back. Despite these challenges, Kroc's relentless drive pushed him to continue opening more franchises, each one modeled after the original McDonald's. Ray Kroc wasn't just a visionary, he was a relentless businessman, with a drive that seemed almost superhuman. He saw the potential for McDonald's to become a household name, not just in the United States, but around the world. Kroc's strategy was simple yet effective. Keep the quality high, the service fast, and the prices low. Kroc's approach to franchising was unique. Unlike other franchises that sold the rights to large territories, he preferred to sell single-store franchises. This way, each franchisee was directly involved in the success of their store, ensuring they maintained high standards. Kroc also insisted on strict adherence to the McDonald's operating system, which meant that every McDonald's offered the same experience, whether you were in Illinois or California. But Kroc wasn't doing it alone. Enter Harry Sonneborn, the financial genius behind McDonald's real estate strategy. Sonneborn came up with a brilliant idea that would not only secure McDonald's financial future, but also give them unprecedented control over their franchises. He proposed the creation of a separate company, Franchise Realty Corporation, which would buy the land on which McDonald's restaurants were built and then lease it to the franchisees. By the early 1960s, Ray Kroc had franchised McDonald's into a thriving business, but his relationship with the McDonald brothers was getting more strained by the day. The brothers were content with their original restaurant and were cautious about rapid expansion, while Kroc was all about aggressive growth. The difference in vision led to constant friction. Kroc was tired of being held back by the brothers. He wanted full control over the business to implement his ideas without having to get their approval. So, he made a bold move. He offered to buy them out. The McDonald brothers, probably weary of the ongoing tensions, agreed to sell the company to Kroc for $2.7 million. That was a hefty sum back then, roughly equivalent to $28 million today. But here's where it gets messy. Kroc wasn't just buying the business. He was buying the name, the original restaurant, and everything associated with McDonald's. The brothers wanted to keep their original store in San Bernardino, but Kroc wasn't having it. He insisted they rename it and cut all ties to the McDonald's brand. Reluctantly, the brothers agreed, renaming their beloved restaurant the Big M. But Kroc wasn't done. To eliminate any competition, he opened a new McDonald's just down the street from the Big M, effectively driving the brothers out of business. It was a ruthless move, but it gave Kroc what he wanted: complete control over the McDonald's empire. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.